Hello, and welcome to the whimsical world of Wizards and Warkarts. Today we're going to be doing a race, which all of the best and brightest wizards have been invited to, and they are bringing their Warkarts out to race with of greatly varying quality. Today we will be taking and teaching you how to play. Alright, so first of all, before you start, what you're going to need to bring your whimsy and creativity. This is a fun game. It's a silly game for very silly people. It's a great in-between game. And then the next thing that you'll need is you'll need dice. About 3 to 4 per player is all that you'll really need. D6s work fine. You're not going to really be using anything other than them. Next, you'll be needing some sort of a measuring device. In this case, we have our lovely little fish here. And next you will need models. This is a miniatures agnostic game, meaning you can use any type of miniatures. You can use your Warhammer ones, you can use some toys that you have lying around, like this little turtle. Whatever you need to do to get the game going, that's what you need to use. It is highly recommended that you take and make your own models for this game. For example, this little guy here, he has a pamphlet of No You, and a scapegoat, and a baller chain. Those are extra traits, which we'll get into later, but it makes the game a lot more fun, keeps the theme a little bit tighter, so it's highly recommended that you play with models that you've made specifically for the game, but you can use whatever. And then lastly, you will need a defined track. It's recommended to have a track of about 4 feet, but honestly, you're probably going to blow up about a foot from the start, so don't worry about it too much. You can do whatever kind of track you want. I typically just set up some kind of a drag strip like this. In this case, I threw some terrain out just to make some choke points of places that you can't drive over. Obviously, this here we're going to be able to drive over. But next thing that you will need before you start the game is to determine how many extra traits you're going to be using. The rules for those are at the end of the book. And it is recommended typically for most games that you have 3 extra traits per player. And then for your first game, probably just start with 1 to figure it out and learn things. Lastly, you'll need to determine turn order. This goes by whoever is the most wizardly looking player. They'll start and you'll go clockwise or however you want to go after that. If you do not have a most obviously wizardly looking player, you guys can roll off. You can do about a fisticuffs, whatever you want to do. Just figure it out. And then you'll need to set up. And you will set up in order of turn. So we're going to start with this guy, and we're going to set him up here, and we're going to set this guy up here. If you are doing a drag strip like this, you start off of the track. If you are doing something like a more traditional round track, then you just start behind the finish line, or the start line. And then after you have done that, you can go ahead and start playing. How turns work is that you move, take an action, which is shooting, melee, or casting, and then you can also take and use extra traits. Most extra traits are once per game on your turn, but some of them are a little bit varied. For example, this guy here is modeled with an scapegoat, which just gives him 3 extra health. So we'll go ahead and designate that. To start with, everybody has 6 health. So in this case, he's going to have 9, and we're going to separate this out with a different die, both because, a D6 doesn't go up to 9, and then also because his scapegoat works a little bit different. All right, so what we'll take and do is to go over each of the actions, and then after that, we'll go through a sample turn. So first of all is movement. In order to move, you need to roll a dice and then add 1 to that, and that's how many inches you move. So in this case, this guy here rolled a 6, which means he's going to be moving 7 inches. Now, when you move, you cannot go backwards, but you can go side to side, you can go at an angle, whatever. As long as you have some forward momentum, you can make that move. You do not have to use all of your movement. And the other thing that you can do with moving, which we're going to double check our distance here and then do, is as long as I'm moving forward, I can come in base-to-base contact with an opponent. Now, that allows me to choose to ram. If I come in base-to-base contact with an opponent through my own volition, through my own movement, I can choose whether or not I want to. But if it happens through an extra trait, typically the extra trait will say, but typically that ram is then forced. So we're going to choose to do a ram to show how that works. And what we would do here is we roll a d6 damage for our wizard first. So we take 2 damage. And then after that, we do 2d3 damage to him. If you don't know how a d3 works, you're just rolling a d6. And then a 1 to 2, so in this case this is a 1, is 1 damage. And then a 3 to 4 would be 2 damage. And then a 5 to 6, which is this, is going to be 3 damage. So in this case, between these two, we deal a total of 4 damage to this guy. So you'll notice that our wizard takes damage first. If our wizard, for example, let's say we didn't have the scapegoat feature on this guy, rolls the d6 and it just so happens to be a 6, we die and this guy does not take any damage. This is how the damage for wizards and warkarts works across the board. Reason being, if you're dead, you can't do anything. And even if your cards collide, this is all magical, it's goofy, it's fun. Don't think about it too hard. All right, and the next action that we can do is we can do shooting. In order to shoot, we just need to pick an opponent that is on the track somewhere and roll a d6. We need to make it 4 up. In this case, we didn't make it. We'll say we'll get a 5 instead. And then we inflict, go ahead and give him his health back. We inflict 1d2 damage. So how a 1d2 works is you roll your dice and then low, high. Low is 1, so 1 to 3 is a 1. And then a 4 to 6 is high. That's 2 damage. So in this case, we rolled a 1, so we're only going to be dealing 1 damage here. All right, and then the next action that we can do is to do a melee attack. In order to do a melee attack, you have to be within 4 inches of each other. We're in 4 inches. And it works kind of just like shooting. You roll a dice on a 4-up, which we actually got. You deal 1d3 damage, and just a reminder, on a 1d3, a 1 to 2 is 1, a 3 to 4 is 2 damage, and then a 5 to 6 is 3 damage. So in this case, we only deal 1, which is okay. And then the last action that you can take is casting, and in order to cast, what you do is you roll 2d6 and you add up the results. So in this case, we check our chart. We get a 7, which is a healing word. Restore 1 hit point. You may not exceed your maximum health. This guy currently is at his maximum health, so we're good to go. Just briefly touch on extra traits. How those work is most of them are once per race. On your turn is how they typically work. Some of them are special. For example, we have one here, which is, I know a shortcut. Start your race at the finish line and finish at the starting line. So if we chose this one, this guy would be over here instead. And then some of them, for example, we have armored t-shirt save. Pardon me, an armored t-shirt, which allows us to save some physical damage, which would be shooting and melee attacks. All right, and lastly, how you win the game is you have to be either the last wizard standing, meaning you still have hit points, they're off the track, they're dead, or you cross the finish line, and to cross the finish line, your entire base has to pass over it. If you have some overhang like this model does, see his base ends back here, but his baller chain is all the way out here, you just have to go by your base. All right, so we will super quickly go through a little example game. We're going to set these guys up with exactly what they're modeled with as far as extra traits go. So in this case here, this guy has an escape goat, a baller chain, and a pamphlet of no you. And then this guy here, he's a mind goblin wizard with a tri-pointed wizard hat, and he is riding Olbrak's bloodthirsty unicorn of destruction. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and start, and we went ahead and we have our health set up, and we have our guys deployed. This guy set up first, he chose over here, and this guy here does extra melee damage with Old Black's bloodthirsty unicorn of destruction, so he wants to be a little aggressive and be closer to him. He's going to go ahead and start. We want to get away, so we're going to start with movement. Alright, kind of went off the board there, but we roll. Alright, that gives us 3 inches of movement because it is d6 plus 1 inches. So typically you want to be measuring front to front. So we're going to go right here. These terrain tiles are super nice. Each tile is actually an inch, so it's super easy to measure with this stuff. Alright, and then next we are going to go ahead and use our once per race baller chain. So this here is one of the extra traits that we picked before we started. This guy's modeled with it. In order to use this, you need to select an opponent within 46 inches. We already have that for sure because we're within 2 inches. Minimum we can roll is 4. And then roll a d6 on a 2-up, which we actually do not get. They would suffer 1d3 damage. In this case, this is a 1. So, that didn't work too well. And then next, we are going to go ahead and choose to cast a spell. Hopefully we can either get away or deal a bunch of damage to him. Likely we'll just explode. So, we roll 2d6. This is a 5 if we go to our chart. 5 is Fireball. Center a 4-inch circle on our wizard. Every model in the circle, including our wizard, takes d3 damage from this magical attack. So 4 inches, we're checking who else is in here. So he's definitely in here as well. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start with our wizard. Remember, in Wizards and Warkarts, any damage that is dealt to both yourself and other people is dealt to yourself first. If you die, doesn't matter what it is, unless it specifies specifically, you will not deal damage to anybody else. You'll just deal damage to yourself, and then nobody else will take anything. So we're going to start here. Remember, we have this scapegoat here, which gives him this extra 3 HP. Let's see how much we take. So, a D3, a 1 to 2 is 1 damage, a 3 to 4 is 2 damage, and a 5 to 6 is 3 damage. So in this case, we take 2 damage. Now, hopefully we are able to make this up by dealing 3 damage to him. Let's see how we do. Yep, we do 3 damage. Just set that out in front. If you don't have enough room on your base like this, you can either switch to a smaller die, or you can just put it out to the side. Alright, so that's this guy's turn. We took and we moved. We used an extra trait, which unfortunately failed. And then we cast a spell, which did damage to us, but it also dealt a lot of damage to our opponent. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and start with this guy. And he is going to first do a melee attack. Since he has Olbrax, his melee attacks deal 1d6 magical damage instead of 1d3. So the reason that we're starting here is because if you are doing a melee attack, you have to be within 4 inches. We're about 2 here, so we can just go ahead and do it now before we move. Alright. Okay, so we do hit, and then now we need to see how much damage we do. We do 3. So this does 1 damage to his scapegoat, and then 2 damage to him. Alright, and then next we are going to take and move. So that is 1d6 plus 1 inches. If you didn't see that, we rolled a 6, so we have 7. Now, we have tons of movement. This guy wants to be a little bit aggressive. He's not the brightest. So what we're going to do is we're going to come and touch base to base over here. So first off, he will take 1d6 damage. We need to roll a 2 or lower in order to survive. We do not, so we die. And this guy here is the winner of the game. As I said, the games of this go pretty quick. It's a great in-between game. It's a lot of fun. And pro tip, use your extra traits as quickly as you can. But that's how you play it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this game. Thank you for watching.